Hello students, today we are going to start a new story. As you know, we have read 4 stories from a choice of short stories in your course. This is the 5th story, Cyclone, and it is written by P. Padmaraju. P. Padmaraju was born in June 24, 1915 at Tripat, uh, Tripatipuram, West Godwari district, died in February 17, 1983, and pen name is P. Padmaraju. P. Padmaraju, occupational lecturer, national tri-Indian, nationality Indian, ethnicity Hindu, citizenship India, education is MSc and Alma Mater Kasi, Vishwa Vidyalaya, general writer, poet, notable works, Gullivan notable awards, Sahitya Academy awards. This is a short introduction of P. This is a picture of cyclone. Palu Gummi Padmaraju, P. Padmaraju, shortly P. Padmaraju. It's a Telugu name, born in 24 January, June 1915 and was died in 1983. Is a Telugu writer and writer of Sahitya Academy Awards, a winner of Sahitya Academy Award, which is the greatest award in India for the literature. And he is known for his works in Telugu literature and Telugu cinema, literary works. His first story was entitled Sabbi. He wrote about 60 short stories. They were published in 3 volumes titled Gulivana and Padva and Pariyanam and Aduruj Sina Muthurtham. These are the Telugu names. And there are some novels of Batikina College, Nala Ragadi, Ram Rajya Niki Rahadari, and Renedo Ashok Kondi Munila Palana. These are the Telugu names of his works as a novel. And now we will discuss about the story Cyclone. Padmaraju explored the subtle, inexplicable attitude of man and woman in this story and shows them to be what they really are in the situation of crisis. In Cyclone, the narrator Rao is exposed for his indifference to the beggar woman, even though it is she who offers him comfort during the cyclone and eventually dies in it. It shows the real picture of a person's heart. The Rao, who denied the beggar woman to help, but when the cyclone came, the same beggar woman helped him and comforted him during the cyclone and eventually dies in it at the place of Rao. So, we can say this is a very beautiful story and about the human behavior. Human behavior is not to accept anyone. Every person have an ego, and so we do many wrong things. Next story is the Babus of Nayanjore. This story is written by R.N. Tagore. As we have read many stories and plays and novels of R.N. Tagore, we can say that Rabindranath Tagore, who was born in 1861, was one of the greatest Indian poets of India, and he was a patriotic poet also. His poem, his song Jana Gana Man is the national anthem of India in these days, and Amar Sonar Bangla is the national anthem of Bangladesh. This is a rare situation. Rabindranath Tagore, who was an educationist also and a singer and a composer, writer, publisher, most of qualities are there in his character. And he established a school named Bharat Bharati, which is known in these days Vishwa Bharati University, Kolkata. So we can say that he has a versatile personality and belonged to a very wealthy family, and all his brothers and sisters are creative personalities. His grandfather was also a great personality, and his father also is a great writer. R.N. Tagore, it's a short introduction. He was born in 7 May 1861 in Kolkata, died in 7 August 1941 at Kolkata. Education, University of Kolkata, and award, Nobel Prize in Literature. As we know, Nobel Prize in Literature is the highest, or can be said that the highest award in literature all around the world. And the Nobel Prize started in 1901, but the first Asian who got the Nobel Prize is Rabindranath Tagore, or we can say that he was the first non-European personality who won the Nobel Prize for literature. He got this award in 1913. In 1911, he composed his famous lyrical book, Gitanjali, the poem of songs, and he got the Nobel Prize for the same book in 1913. In 1911, he composed all these songs in Bengali language, and then in 1912, he translated himself in the language, English language, and then in 1913, he won the Nobel Prize in literature. His parents, Rabindranath Tagore and Sharda Devi. Rabindranath Tagore is a well personality and prosper family. Rabindranath Tagore also written Rabindranath Tagore. Savarikret Gurudev was a Bengali polymath who reshaped Bengali literature and music, and as well as Indian art with contextual modernism in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. As we know, he is given a title Gurudev, and this title is given by Mahatma Gandhi. And we know very well that Mahatma, the title to Gandhi, is also given by Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore. So both are the great personality in Indian freedom struggle, and both gave their contribution in the freedom of India. Rabindranath Tagore, who was a famous poet, wrote many novels also. One of his novels is Gora, and it was very famous in the literature world. This is a coin which was established, or which was made by the Indian government in the memory of the great Indian poet Rabindranath Tagore. The Babus of Nayan Jori. This is a story about vividly evokes the decay of landed class in Bengal at the turn of the century by ironically exposing the pretensions of the Jamidar. And Kalis Babu, now fallen on bad days. The Babus of Nayanjore. Nayanjore is a place, and the Babus are very famous as Kalis Babu and other Jamidars. This is a story about the rural India and the pretension of the Jamidar, and other themes are available in this story. Now, this is the third story in your chapter. This is the third story of today, but it is the seventh story in your course of short stories. The Lost Child, Mulk Raj Anand. Mulk Raj Anand is a very famous modern writer in India. His Untouchable and Coolie is very famous story in literary world. The Lost Child. Mulk Raj Anand. This is the short introduction of the poet, of the writer. He was born in Peshawar, December 12 in 1905. Peshawar, which is now in the Pakistan, and he was born in the British India and died in 28 September 2004. An Indian writer in English known for his depiction of the lives of the poorer caste in Indian society. This story, which belongs to the poorer caste in Indian society, and he write most of his stories around the poor people. As we know, in the Coolie, he wrote about the coolies and their works, and in the Untouchables, he wrote about the person which are seemed to be very low in the society. Mahatma Gandhi, uh, Bhimrao Ambedkar, etc. These people works for these Untouchables very much, but Mulk Raj Anand also wrote some plays and some poetries, some stories about these people, and gives his contribution in the freedom or in the independence of these people. Mulk Raj Anand's The Lost Child. The Lost Child is a short story about a child and his aspiration, demands, and realization. The story is mainly focused on the awareness for parents. The message is we really don't understand the true value of parents and take them as granted. It is not. As we know that the lost child demands too much things from his parents, but his parents denied him. At last, it lost its way, and then he ran away from the house, and then get troubles, many troubles in his life. The significance of parents is only revealed once they are out of sight, and we realize the world is upside down. When someone lost his father or mother, then he really know what were the values of parents. This is the message of this story. This is what the little child realized once he got lost in the fair. He demands many things in the fair to his father and mother, and then he lost his way, and then he realized what is the value of fathers and mothers or the parents. The ending is somewhat bizarre as the reader keep on guessing whether the lost child finally found his parents or not. It is a surprise, and it is somewhat depend on the audience. The lost childs, the theme of the story. The lost childs deal with the experiences of a child who goes to a fair with its parent and wanted many things. Then the child gets lost and refuses to accept any of the things it had earlier wanted so much. This is a dramatic change in this story. In a start, we see that the child wants many things from his parents, but when he lost his way in the fair, many of the vendors want to give him those things which are wanted by him earlier, but any one of he refused to accept any one of them. He said that only parents are more important than anything. Now the child only insists, I want my mother, I want my father. Perhaps the child is a symbol of human being lost in this world. It's a philosophical term. The child is a symbol of human being. We all are human being, and we are lost our way in this world. And as Guru Nanak says, we are all children lost in the word fair. This is the word fair, and all the persons, all the men and women, all the children and all the animals, all we have lost our ways in this word fair, and we are here to fulfill our punishment. The underlying theme of the story, the lost child, is the universality of a child's desire for everything that he claps his eyes on. All that the child witnesses, from the toys lining the street, to the dragonflies in the mustard field, to the snake swaying, or to tunes of Pungi, obeys the child. It is the usual assault on his senses. He looks at everything in wonder. His senses almost rejoicing being alive because he is in his original state. When we were child, we also do the same. But as soon as we grow up, we forget about everything. His parents, on the other hand, are like a parental control filter, as abstaining him from the lures of the illusionary world, as if secretly knowing that what he needs most is entirely something else. A quiet reminder that the child must learn to prioritize what's important and what's not in life. In the end, when the child loses his parents, he understands what his parents' silent gestures and reprimands were trying to teach him. And at last, he also learned the important lesson. He realized now that what he wanted most was his parents, and this is the need of every person in this society. Every person want his parents or its parents, because all the earthly things are temporary, but the parents are always permanent. They are forever yours. This is the message of this story. He continuously refuses everything that the kind stranger offered to console him with exactly the very same things he was goading his parents for moments ago. This is a great thing that in a start he wants many things from the society, from the market, but when The strangers gives him the same toys or same things, he refuses everything because he loves only his parents and now he has lost them, so he know what is the value of his parents. Within minutes, his life changes and offers him an entirely new perspective of looking at life and understanding it for what it really is. And at last, he get a knowledge about the importance of his parents. So we can say this is a story about a child who has lost his way from the and he lost his father and mother, and his father and mother who loves him very much, also in trouble. The child, the child who loves many things before he came in the fair, and then he demands many toys and many things in the fair from his parents. But when he lost his way, he denied all these things. Many strangers want to console her by giving these things, but he refuses. It refuses everything. He wants only one thing: his father and mother, his father and mother, his parents. This is the pathetic condition of this child. Now, this is the fourth story and the last story. This is the eighth story in your syllabus, Dusk. It is written by H. Munro Saki. Saki is the pen name of the writer. You can see the picture of the writer. He was born in 1870 and died in 1916. This is a very short period of his life, and he was one of the famous literary short story writer in the literary world. He was born in 18 December 1870, Steve Maimer, and died in November 13, 1916, Beaumont, Hamel, France. His nickname is H. Munro, full name Hector Hugh Munro, and education Bedford School, and he used a pen name Saki. Hector Hugh Munro, better known by the pen name Saki and also frequently as H. Munro, was a British writer whose witty, mischievous, and sometimes macabre stories satirized Edwardian society and culture. Dusk. This is a very beautiful story. Munro particularly excelled in the form of the short story, which leads up to a surprise ending. As in Dusk, where the elusive cake of shop turned out not to belong to a benighted young man at all. A love of practical joking, sarcastic humor, and lack of sympathy with mankind generally are some of the characteristics of Munro's work. These are the basic themes which could be found in his works. Norman Godsby sit on a park bench at dusk. Dusk is the morning time, before morning, and a time when, in his estimation, individuals who have experienced defeat in their lives can sojourn unrecognized. An elderly gentleman sits next to Godsby, and Godsby judges him to be a lonely person of no consequence. After a short time, the old man leaves and his place is taken by a younger man, better dressed than his predecessors but equally downcast. The man tells Godsby a sad story of having gone out of buy some soap. Then, not having been able to find his hotel, Godsby responded that he had once done the same thing, only in the foreign country. To which the man rejoins, then in the foreign land. One could go to the council for help, and but here at home there is no help to be had unless some decent chap would believe his story and lend him some money. Godsby says he will lend the man some money if he can produce the soap as proof that his story is true. But the man cannot and walks away. Looking on the ground, Godsby spies a new bar of soap and goes after the man and lends him the money. When he returns to the park bench, however, the elderly gentleman who was sitting next to him originally is searching the ground for a lost bar of soap. This is a very humorous end of this story. This story wants to tell us that the clothes are not the mirror of a person's character. Every person is good or not good, it is not belong to his clothes. Clothes may be worn, torn, and old, but the character define us, the good or bad, not the clothes. But the Gatsby, who was confused by the clothes, and then he accepted the wrong man as the owner of the shop, and he gave him money, and then the right person is denied or is rebuked by him many times. So this is the great end of this story, and we have read 8 stories in this lesson. There are 8 stories in your syllabus. First of all, there is The Refugee, which is written by Paul Buck. And then The Nose Jewel, which was written by C. Rajagopalachari, the first Indian Governor General of India from 1947 to 1950. And then third is The Interview, which was written by Khushwant Singh. Khushwant Singh, the very much or high prolific writer of in modern India. And then The Miracle, which was written by Kartar Singh Duggal. And now we have read the 4 stories today. First is Cyclone. Cyclone is written by Padma Raju, and then The Babus of Nayanjore is written by R. N. Tagore. And then The Lost Child, which was written by Mulk Raj Anand. Mulk Raj Anand is a writer for the low class society, and he submit all his work to the society. In his work Coolie, we see that he wrote about the common persons who are coolies, and then in his another work, Untouchables, he took the side of the untouchables who are ignored by the society, who are praised in the society before the independence. And after the independence, we see that there is no barrier between the high class or the low class or any untouchability in the society, because now India is a very well educated country, and education destroy all the walls of these type destruction, or these type can be said, these type of all these type bars or the doors and the walls. And the Lost Child, which was written by Mulk Raj Anand, is a good story about a boy who has lost his way. He wants many things from his family, but when he lost his father and mother, he only want one thing, his father and mother. He wants only parents. This shows the love of a child for his parents and the love of parents for his child. At many times, we wish for the wrong things, but when we need them and get them, we realize that these are only temporary things. The valuable things in our life is our parents, and this is the message of this story. And the last is The Dusk. The dusk, when the Gatsby found a wraithed coat, cracked coat person who has lost his something and was finding there, and then a young man who was well dressed and also the same activity, but the author find him the honest person and the dishonest from the old man to the old man. But at last he realized that he was wrong, because clothes are not the mirror of our characters. In this story, 2 elements of the humor that the author uses in the story are comic irony and the satire. Both are used in the last stanza, and comic irony occurs when the reader knows something that a character does not. In this story is evidenced when the young man Dorley ends his sad tale with a veiled request for money. The man obviously had told his story to make Gatsby feel sorry for him and lend him some money. But Gatsby does not know for sure that this story is a lie or not. He don't know about it. Satire is the use of humor to expose a human frailty. Gatsby's inability to judge his counterparts correctly is comically pointed out in his unstated charging when he discovered that through his own miscalculation he has allowed the young man to outwit him with his sad story of woe. So this shows the confusing mind of the Gatsby. The old man who was honest cannot impress, could not impress to the Gatsby, but the young man who has well dressed can convince him and got the money from him. This shows that the human person always have partiality in his mind. There are soft corners and hard corners in his mind. He know that the red tattered clothes are the sign of the poverty and the thieves, and the well dressed is the sign of the gentleman's. So this is the prejudice in our mind. And the poet want to convince or poet want to reveal this prejudice in our mind. He want to remove this prejudice in our mind. So he gives his arguments. The short story, The Story Dusk by H. Munro, better known by the pen name Saki, begins in very cynical manner. The story begins with young men and old men and women who have been defeated and come out at dusk, but the rest of the story has very little to do about the Engwins as it shifts to a young trickster who set out to get some money from a very gullible man. A rather arrogant man, Norman Gaspby, sat on a bench in Hyde Park all amongst the defeated, and yet that did not consider himself the same since he was without many problems and his failure. One, in a more subtle ambition. And we can say a young man complaining about a very foolish story sat down as an the elder gentleman left gets by as gullible as he is pointed out the flaws in the man's story. Angered, the youth leaves, but Grotsby mistakenly thinks he finds evidence to support the youth's story, so he runs after the young man and loans him money. But as he returned to his bench, Grotsby sees the old gentleman looking for something. It is the supposed evidence for the youth. Now he truly belonged amongst the defeated. So these are the 8 stories in your course, and in next class we will start a big story and which is written by George Orwell, The Animal Farm. Thanks.